moment, we're going to begin the funeral services of Mrs. Rosanne Kane. For those of you who are here, please take a moment to be sure that your cell phones have been turned off. And we welcome those of you who are online. At this time, we're going to open up the hearse and we're going to bring Mrs. Rosanne Kane's casket to her grave. And if we can have any able-bodied gentlemen to help, it would be greatly appreciated. As we prepare to bring her, Rabbi Yehezkiel Greenberg will be officiating.
Right in front of your dad, actually. Right. So I'll talk to Nancy this morning. I think she's fine.
Careful, big dip in the ground.
Little dip in the ground.
Now go straight there. Come right up, David. You come right up on.
David, careful. Yep.
Mizmor David, Adonai Baruch Ben Aseshi Abi Saint Amay Benuchos in Arlein Nafshi Shoy and Cheni Magat Set Man Shmoy Gam Keelech Begeis Amaves Lo Irak Etay Mardi Shiv Tchol Mishantecha Hemo Yinachamun Tarach von Ashuch Neget Roy the Stanta Bestem Roy Shikoisi Rivaya Achtoy Vachesed Dinfun Kamen Chayov Shafti Beveis Adonai Lo Irach Yamim. We've gathered to pay Kavod Achron to Mrs. Ronnie Kane, Rachel Roiza Bas Yekasil Yehuda. Mrs. Kane was a survivor, and it really stopped the hesped here. Any survivor who went on to make their mark in this world, enough that there's a minion of Shomei Shabbos here by the Levaya, speaks volumes for the fortitude, for the Gevura, and it's really not anything else that has to be said. But I'll say a few words on behalf of the Kehillah, the community, and afterwards we'll hear from some of the family members. She and her family had a very difficult time during the Muhammad, during the war. Came here, it was difficult. Eventually, after family tragedy, they strengthened, she and her husband, their relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And they were from the first people who moved here to our St. Louis Park community back from North Minneapolis. And they actually built their own house right across the street from where I live on Salem Avenue. And she sent 3 boys to Torah Academy. It was not usual back then for refugees to be doing such a thing. It was, again, that gevurah, that fortitude. And they were very involved with the community. Her husband was in the meat business. I believe he worked at a time for Shepsel Roberts as a menaker, as a traveler. And she was very involved in building the Kehillah along with her husband. She was very involved in Torah Academy, always came to the Hamantash and baking with Mrs. Roberts and the other women. She was very involved in Knesset Israel, in the new neighborhood. And if you can say, her name, Rachel Roisa, perhaps depicts her essence. Think about the 2 names. Roisa means rose. A rose is surrounded by thorns. She was a rose surrounded by many thorns, many difficulties in life. But she did not have it easy. She buried 3 brothers, a husband, 2 sons. It was a very difficult life, full of thorns. But she was also like Rachel. Rachel was very stoic and didn't let the difficulties and the hardships of her life affect her on the outside. And she too, even when she was in pain, she didn't let it show. She smiled. She always said everything's good. She was someone who had that ability to gloss over the trouble for the sake of her family, her children, and as any good mother would do. Not an easy task, but she was just like Rachel in that regard. She was very close to her extended family also. I spoke to a number of nephews who I'm very close with, Rabbi Shainbaum, or Yonah Shainbaum, his brother, and they said how they always felt the care that she had for them. They always felt how proud she was of their accomplishments. They were very close with her, and they really felt that she cared and followed them in everything that they did. And we'll hear now from one of the community members who did know her back in the day when he was younger, Rabbi Bornstein, and then we'll hear from some of the family members, some on Zoom who aren't here and some who are here with us in person. Amen.
Greenberg covered a lot of the bases. I was pretty young still when I went to yeshiva. By the time I moved back here after yeshiva, she had already moved to Chicago. But you can tell a person by the friends that they had. She was close friends with my grandparents, Shepsel and Tybee Roberts, and our extended family. She lived right behind them. And that tells you something about a person, just who they associate with. I have in my head memories of her, I believe, at the bake sale, whatever things were going on in the shuls or the school. You know, I can see her, being a part of whatever crew there was. She seemed to me, again, as a kid, one of those people that was always part of the team and always part of the crew. And that, again, says something about a person who's always along and on the team. As I mentioned, I was thinking a little similar that in the ensuing weeks, we're going to be learning about Yosef HaTzadik in the Torah, and Yosef is also a person who goes through tremendous challenges and trials, but never seems to let it keep him down, even for a day. And he's a person who, everything we see about him is he takes whatever thing happens in stride, and he continues to have that fortitude to move forward, to move ahead. I guess he got it from his mother Rachel. And again, that was the first thought that went to my head in thinking about Mrs. Kane, was a person who didn't sit around with sour grapes, rather sat around and said, what can I do next? What's the next step that I can do? That's my picture, again, more as a kid than as an adult, but that's sometimes maybe the cleanest picture you get is when you're young. And so I did speak to, before I came here, Rabbi Prero, who the Preros bought the Kane's house many years ago. He's unfortunately homesick with COVID, so him and his family could not come. He told me they learned Mishnayos last night in her memory with his kids, and he also wanted to ask me to express the appreciation of how nicely she treated them in renting the house and buying the house, and just what immense she was, and they have a tremendous appreciation for the kind of person that she was. So you make an impact on people on that level, it tells you the essence of what the person is. And so on behalf of Torah Academy and the community and my extended family that certainly knew her and had a relationship with her, as someone that will be missed. Whenever I talked to Sheldon, I would ask him how his mother was doing, and I always, was always concerned about her and that she should be well and healthy, and Amish Hashem, she should be watching over the family, and her chusim should carry her family, extended family, all over the country to great things.
We'll hear now virtually from grandson David Kane.
Due to these strange times, we can't all be there in person, unfortunately. However, Bubby's amazing positive energy is felt around the world. The abundant amount of messages, received phone calls, social media posts, and on attest to her positivity and influence that she has in this world. For someone who has lived through so much and made it to the age of 94, I can go on for a long time with stories and memories from Minneapolis days when I was a little boy helping her make haroset for Pesach, Skokie days with the entire Kane family, days in the restaurants eating lunches, especially the blintzes, and listening to jokes, visits to her in Northbrook when she was the cat sitter, and even up until recent, playing card games with her and Beth in the Park Plaza. She had a rough childhood, teenage years, as we all know, but her resilience, her strength, her love, her beauty, and positivity that she gave to all of her children, grandchildren, and even great-grandchildren was the powerful spirit and wisdom that we all have within us, and the Kane Braun legacy will continue on for many, many generations to come. Her famous sayings will always be remembered, from jokes about penguins to more serious life lessons, such as a penny saved is a penny earned. She will be greatly missed by everyone and never, ever forgotten. May you rest in peace and power. Love you, Bubs.
Okay, we'll hear now virtually from Rabbi Michael Friedman, also grandson-in-law.
The Torah teaches that Noach was one of the few righteous who merited to survive the destruction of the world and merited to rebuild and see a new world begin and flourish. He's described in the Torah as righteous, and that he found chen in Hashem's eyes, that he was endearing, that he had grace. Like Noach, Bubby, a heroic tzaddikus, survived and built a world with her wisdom and fortitude, instilling love, kindness, and the spirit of goodwill to her family, friends, and loved ones. We know only of a fraction of the thousands of small and large miracles that occurred and ensured her survival throughout the Shoah, without any of which this family would not be here. However, even greater than those thousands of miraculous acts from Hashem were the thousands of acts of emunah, of her faithfulness and Zaidi Hai's faithfulness to the Ribono Shel Olam, to the ideals of the Torah, to the ideals of their children, to their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren, to their loved ones, to this community, and to Israel and the entire Jewish people. At the end of benching the grace after meals, we ask, V'nim tzachein v'seichel tov b'nei Elokim v'adam. We ask that it's not enough to have grace, to have charm, to be endearing in the eyes of God, but also to be endearing in the eyes of humanity. Like Noach, she had tzidkis, her righteousness. She also had chen. Not only did she have charm, grace, vivacity, and a simchas chayim, tremendous love of life, but she also brought chen. She made others endearing to their loved ones, to family members, and to her friends as well. She carried herself with a light and with a chen all her own. And I just want to say at the end, from me and from our family, Bubby, I'll never forget you. I'll never forget your smile, your laugh, how you called my name. We love you, and we look forward to seeing you again, as the Torah says, Ani amis va'achayeh, that the Melech is memis umechayeh, that just as God takes, God will cause to be awakened again with the Tchias HaMesim, the revival of the dead. With love, we love you.
We'll hear now from Mrs. Lorraine Kane, the daughter-in-law.
Hi, Mom. I've got so many memories. We're married 40 years. I met you 2 years before, so 42 years. As you used to say, it's like a dream. You had such good sayings. That one, enjoy yourself, it's later than you think. When my kids were little and I would complain of, it was hard and this and that, she would say, Lorraine, these are the best years of your life. You enjoy them, you'll see. When the kids grow up, it's different. And she was right. I had them all to myself with Sheldon. As everyone knows, she was a great joke teller. People remember the penguin joke, the joke about the martini, eins, zwei, drei, and she said, no, eins ist genickt. We okay? Okay. The one about the husband who left the wife $10,000 for a stone, and she says, do you like it? It was a good one. She first met me in Minneapolis. We were dating maybe a year, and I had just gotten my hair permed, and I was curly and a little wild, and I was skinny, believe it or not. And she said to Sheldon, oh, she looks like a little hippie. But she treated me like a daughter from day one. She made such good meals. I remember the first time I ever had Spanish tongue. It doesn't sound good, but she made it so good with the peppers and the onions and this really good sauce. It probably was just ketchup and water, but it was so tasty. She said, oh, I want to make a cheese pie. I said, what's a cheese pie? And she described, I said, oh, a cheesecake. She called it cheese pie. She had her little ways of calling things. She never would call a cemetery. She would always say, the field. When are we going to the field? So we lived together in Northbrook after Jaime died. She moved to Skokie. She was with Schiffer and Jeff for a while. And then our house was built. She moved in with us. And, people would say, how do you live with your mother-in-law? It must be hard. I said, first of all, it's a big house. Beside that, she's wonderful. She's the best person. There's not a bad word I could say. Sometimes it was a little hard having two buses. She would say something, I'd say, no, Mom, let's do it my way. So if I ever said anything bad in that regard, I would hope she would forgive me. But she was always right. She taught me how to peel a potato in one swoop. Taught me how to peel with the knife, with the thumb. No peelers with that. She made great Hungarian potatoes. I always would assign her that for the Yom Tov meals. Make me the potatoes, make me the fish, but she always liked the way I made the chicken. She lived with us, and we had a cat, Josie, who she never liked. She always said cats were tumah. But then Josie passed, and we adopted a year later. We walk in with two, not one, two white kittens, and she almost dropped. She says, 2? Oh, my God. Don't expect me to help with nothing. Well, you can imagine within a couple days, she was in love with them. They were in love with her, sleeping with her, petting them. She used to walk with her walker, and Bella would be on the seat. She would give her a ride around the house. She loved those cats. She did everything for her kids. I remember when my youngest Brett was probably not even 2. He was standing by the steps, and she saw he was about to fall down, and she rushed to save him, and she went herself and broke her wrist. That was Bobby. She would just do everything for her kids and her grandkids. Not even a thought. Always a smile, a kind word. She loved slice of life. She looked forward to being the hostess with the mostest and working the floor just like Sheldon, but probably better, and telling jokes, and it's just wonderful. Everyone loved her. So many people have come out and poured their love of stories from Slice of Life in the last couple days and how they knew her. She was a simple woman, yet very smart. She had no formal education. Life was her education. She learned as she went along. She had no parents when she came here to teach her the ropes. She didn't know anything about a family, about cooking, and she figured it out, and she did well, so well with it. Anyway, to wrap it up, Mom, I'm so sorry if I haven't had time to say hi to you. You never know when it's your last conversation. Sheldon would show me the phone. I'd kibitz a little, but then I'd say, I got to go back to work. I'll talk tomorrow. And I regret that, like anyone would. But I love you. I love everything you did for us and for Sheldon. You couldn't have been a more devoted mother to earn such a devotion from a son. You earned it, and he earned it, and we'll always remember you. I love you so much.
Hugs?
Daniel Kane, grandson.
Hi, Bubby. First, I just want to thank everyone for the outpouring of love and support. The messages that have come through, people sharing the memories of my Bubby Ronnie over the years really just shows how far her reach was and the lives that she touched. When I think of my Bubby Ronnie, the two things that come first and foremost to my mind are her strength and her selflessness. She was probably the strongest person I've ever known. When you think about some of the things that we've heard and what she's gone through in life, and just the way that she carried positive attitude throughout everything. When it comes to the selflessness, she did everything for her children and her grandchildren. She would give you the money from her wallet, the clothes off her back, the food off her plate, and then she would keep offering you more and more food off her plate until you were stuffed. And that was just who she was. And while you can look at those factors, the one that really stands out is that she was a funny lady. She was our funny bunny, as we like to say. The story goes that she moved into our house when I was 10 years old after Zadie High died, and we didn't really know what to expect. It wasn't like current times when you could talk to your grandparents over FaceTime every day, you know, a couple visits a year, and then suddenly Bubby Ronnie's moving in with you. Too young to really comprehend it. And over those first couple of years, just the level of deepening of the relationship that I remember with her and having her there in our lives was just tremendous. And now looking 25 years almost later, all I could realize is how I wasn't grateful enough. And I don't think any of us can really appreciate how special of a woman she was in the time that we had her. To be able to have shared her with my friends over the years. They all know Bubby. Who's that old European lady walking around in a nightgown? That's Bubby Ronnie. Come right in. She remembered my friends name by name, even though she confused my name with Michael and Matthew pretty much every other day. She was just a tremendous woman. You know, living in a house where we had kosher restaurants, you would think that there was a problem of having too many leftovers in the fridge. Nobody appreciated leftovers more than Bubby Ronnie. We would all complain about it, and she would just sit there and say, I can't believe it. It's delicious. And it's just this bright light that has left us. And I think all we can really do is try to remember how special she was, how kind she was, how genuine she was. And the last thing I want to say is I don't think I can think of anybody who was often, not a knock to my parents, but as proud of me or as proud of my cousins, my children, her children, as she was. Everything that we strove to do in life, she just supported it, and all she wanted was great things for us. And it almost felt extra satisfactory to do things and to see that she was happy and proud about it, because it almost justified all of the things that she's gone through in life in order to allow us to do all the things that we do every day. So what it really comes down to is I was more proud to have her as my grandmother and my Bubby than she can probably ever imagine. And I wish she were here for me to tell her that, but she is. I love you. I'll miss you, puppy.
Mrs. Nikki Friedman, granddaughter.
As I write this hesped for my bubby Ronnie, I'm sitting in the DFW airport in Dallas, Texas, getting ready to board a flight for Minneapolis for her funeral. And I can't even believe these words as I'm writing them. How can Bubby be gone? I know she was 94 years old and she lived a long, full life, and she left the world peacefully without being sick or suffering or being hospitalized. And she really hated hospitals and never wanted to be hooked up to any machines. And she left gracefully without tearful, schlepped out goodbyes, which I'm sure none of us would have ever been able to handle or ever be ready for. And trust me, I know she's in a better place now, and I know she's in Hashem's hands, and her soul is going into Gan Eden, and it's reuniting with all the many loved ones that she lost over the years. But I still cannot fathom how this world can possibly go on without her. My bubby wasn't just a bubby, she was really my best friend. And I look around in the airport and I see every single person plugged into some sort of device. And I think that it's absolutely mind-boggling about how she came from this world that was a slower-paced, much more simple world that my bubby spoke of with such fond memories and appreciation, and with the wonder at how a world could change so dramatically and so quickly within one person's lifetime. In those memories, those lessons and descriptions from my bubby Ronnie are so deeply engraved in my mind and my heart that they've helped craft me into the person and the Jew that I have become today. Despite her enduring the horrors of the Holocaust, watching her loved ones torn away from her as they were marched to the gas chambers, my bubby often spoke about the beautiful childhood that she had before the war. She was born into the most wonderful, loving, Torah-observant family with 8 kids, and a special bond between each of them and with their parents, climbing trees, finding a cow that kept wandering to their home daily to be milked, and then finding out that it was actually her grandparents' cow that had come time and time again, and telling me stories about her brilliant father, who was a real Talmid Chacham, a scholar with a short beard, not a long beard, a short beard, and sharp wit, and how her mother, my namesake, Frida, would always urge her and her father to let my bubby sleep in as a young girl. And when my great-grandfather would say, "No, what's going to become of her, letting her sleep in all the time?" my great-grandmother Frida would say, "It's okay. A girl needs to be pretty." Well, I'll tell you, my great-grandmother certainly knew a thing or two, because my bubby was the least lazy person I ever met, and I guess all that sleeping in really did her good. And following that tradition, she would always urge me to take it easier, not to work so hard. I would be schlepping the trays at Slice of Life. She'd say, "You're going to get wains in your hands." She meant veins, but in her accent, she'd say, "Wains in your hands. A girl needs to be pretty. Don't work so hard." And then there were stories during the war. It's interesting, when I was a young girl, my bubby never spoke about the war. She lived in Minneapolis. I saw my grandparents once a year or so. But then after my Zaidi Hayel of Shalom passed away, my bubby moved in with our family. And the two of us started to walk to shul together every Shabbos, just the two of us. And over the years, we had many, many long walks together, 45 minutes to shul and another 45 minutes back, with many, many deep, long talks. And she'd always ask me about my life, about school, my friends, etc. And she was the best listener. Some people, they run around to give advice all the time. Bubby had a special way about her. She knew just when and how to offer advice, but always in a way where she would build you up. She made you feel like you could do anything, filled with unconditional love and acceptance always. And on those long walks, she'd share with me her horrors of being in the lines headed to work in the labor camps in Auschwitz. And when her mother was pulled to go to the line to be sent to death, my bubby ran out of the line after her mother. And when the evil Mengele, Yamach Shemo V'Zichrono, hit my bubby so hard with a stick that everything turned dark and she couldn't see a thing. And she felt herself being pulled back to the line to work, to live. And that was the last time that she saw her mother, my namesake. Hashem definitely held Bubby's hand throughout her many, many trials and tribulations, losing her beloved husband, my Zaidi Hai, 2 of her sons, my uncles Alan and Jeffrey, of blessed memory. But despite all the heaviness and difficulty she overwent, Bubby was filled with so much joy. I once asked her, "Bubby, how do you do it?" How did you have the strength to go on after so much loss and difficulty? And she looked me straight in the eye, and she simply answered, after loss, I just looked at the people who needed me, and I had to be strong. I had to keep going for them, and this is life. And that's who she was, as so many people mentioned today already. She accepted what God gave her. She was a giver, always looking to brighten somebody else's day, always telling jokes, greeting the many customers who walked in the door of Slice of Life, my father's restaurant, for so many years, with the biggest, warmest smile, and most importantly, really listening to them. She loved people, and she loved connecting with others and sharing warmth and love with others. And mostly, she loved her family, her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. Her whole being would light up whenever we would do video calls with the kids, and she'd give them all her love and attention and ask them how they're doing and tell them how much she loves them. She'd say, Bubby Ronnie loves you. You know that? Bubby Ronnie loves you. She'd say over and over again. Tell them how wonderful they are, with such gentleness, connection, and deep understanding of what young children need, despite the age difference between them and her. Not to mention, she was crazy about my husband, Michael. Sometimes she could sense I was stressed or overwhelmed by the kids and just life. And rather than reprimanding me and telling me just to chill out, she'd say, Nikki, darling, these are the best years of your life. And then she'd lovingly empathize and say how she knows how it's such hard work, and she remembers how exhausted she was too with young children. And she didn't have any training or certification, but Bubby really could have been a professional therapist. Even though we were far apart, Bubby in Chicago and myself living in Dallas, Texas, we spoke often. Every conversation ended the same way. She'd smile, blow me a kiss, and say, I love you. I'll speak with you again. I'll speak with you again. But the last time I spoke with her, around a week ago, she was unusually quiet and had a different look on her face than usual, a distant look in her eyes. And at the end of the conversation, I said, I love you, Bubby. I'll speak with you again soon. But she just looked at me and she shook her head. And then I repeated myself, and I did the same thing again. And she responded the same way. I hung up the phone and I called my father and I said something was very wrong. And she knew her time in this world was coming to an end, and I sensed it as well. We had a very special connection like that. So, Bubby, what am I supposed to do now? There's still so much more to ask you, and to learn from you, and to share with you, and to cry with you about. And to look in your eyes, and you look back in mine with that all-knowing look, without needing to say a thing. How am I going to manage without your guiding light in my life? I just keep listening to your voicemail on my phone over and over again, just to hear your voice again and feel your love. But I know deep down inside that even though you're gone in flesh, your spirit is always with me. Not just the memories, but actually intertwined in my fiber and my very being. And now it's my turn to carry the mantle that you've carried for so many years, brightly lighting the way for those who were blessed to know you, to stretch myself to be more like you, to love more, accept more, judge less, be gentler with ourselves, especially with myself, be gentler with others, and to love Hashem and Torah and mitzvos and Shabbos and a tasty cholent and a good game of kaluki and all the goodness and all the wonderful, wonderful gifts that I have in my life. Bobby, my favorite saying of yours, and trust me, there were so many, was, I wake up every day and I'm alive. I'm grateful. What more could I ask for? I'll continue to think of you every time I roll meatballs, cut an onion, which you somehow enjoyed eating raw, and how you peeled veggies like a pro with a knife and just your thumb without even needing to look down, and how you often said, it's like a dream. This whole life is like a dream. Well, now your beautiful neshama is resting with Hashem, and it's fitting that you left this world during the week that we read in the Parsha about Rachel Imeinu's death. Rachel, your namesake. You were truly one of the greats, Bubs. May your neshama have an aliyah and bask in all of Hashem's everlasting goodness and his light, just as you deserve. I love you and I'll miss you forever and always.
plan to do a chesed for Mrs. Kane to help bury her. Minute to start with an upside down shovel to show reluctance and not hand the shovel to another.
Ladies and gentlemen, after the grave is filled, the rabbi will conclude with the Tziduk Hadin, memorial prayer, and the Kaddish. We'll form a shura, and that's when Sheldon will walk through, and you may offer words of consolation. Memorial contributions in her memory to the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center would be appreciated. For those of you who are online, you can get that information off of the website. For those of you who are here, it's on the service folder. Finally, we respectfully ask if we can help form a minyan so Sheldon can do mincha. We'll do it outside the gates of the cemetery, because then Sheldon and Lorraine are going to be returning to Florida. So for those of you who can stay, it would be greatly appreciated that we can have a minyan so Sheldon can say his first Kaddish.
Conrad, right? Yep. I was reminding her, I don't know if you remember when I came with my mother and father about 2005, your mother, we came to the restaurant to eat, and then there was a Holocaust memorial event going on that you were catering up at some place a little bit north of where you, we went up there and participated in that.
So my mom had a chance to hang out with your mother. And my mother always liked your mother very much.
Hatzur Tomim Pauloi Kichal Rochav Mishpat Elam and Ovein Ova Tzadki Ashor Hu Hatzutam Chol Paul Miyom Loy Matifol Hashal Matav Amol Memis Mechai Murder Shobayol Hatzutam Chol Masa Miyom Matase Omer Bayis Chesed Chilon Lanus Ase V'Schus Nekad Keseh Hakshiva Vase Tzadki B'Chol Rochav Hatzur Tomim Erech Apayim Amalei Rachamim Chamol No V'Chus No Lavois Vonim Ki L'cha Adon Haslichois Varachamim Tzadki Atam Adonai Lahamisu Lachadiyos Hashem Yodchom Pikton Kol Ruchais Chalila L'chav Zechulenu Kumchais V'yivno Einecha B'Rachamim Alen Fiku Chais L'chav Adon Rachamim Laslichois Adam Ben Shana Yiyah Ayel Shan Yicha Ma'yisran Loi Yiyah Baruch Dain Emes Memis Mechaya Baruch Hu Ki Emes Dino M'shoyted Chol Beinoi M'sham Odin L'cheshbon V'dinoi V'kol Shmo Hedoi Yitenu Danu Adonai Ki Tzadik Mishpatecha Titzak D'Avrecha V'Sizka V'Shavtecha Ve'ein L'hara Achmidas Shavtecha Tzadik Adonai V'Yosher Mishpatecha Dein Emes, Shefet Tzedek v'Emes, Baruch Dein Emes, Shekol Mishpato Tzedek v'Emes, Nefesh L'chai B'Yodecha, Tzedek Mali Minocha B'Yodecha, Nachem Al Chaydas Tzoyin Yodecha, V'Semen L'Malach, Heref Yodecha. Gidol Eitzav Rav Ali L'Yah, Asher Enecha V'Kuchais Al Dekol Darchi B'nei Adam, L'Seis Lish Kidrocha, V'Chefri Ma'alalov. Hagid Ki Yashar Adonai, Tzuriv L'Evlos Aboy, Adonai Nosan, V'Adonai L'Koch, Yehi Shem Adonai V'Varoch, V'Hu Rachum Chaber Avam Lo Yashchis, V'Yibol Hashem Apoy, V'Lo Ya'ir Kol Chamasoi. Amen. 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 El Molei Rachamim, Sheichein, Bamroimim, Amtseim, Nucha, Kanfei Ashchina, Avmalais, Kedoshim, Utahirim, Gezayar, Harakia, Mazarim, Esnishmas, Rachel Roiz, Abasik, Yikusil, Yehuda, Shalchalai Lama, Mavorsh, Nadvim, Sadaka, Bataskaras, Nishmasach, Meganedim, Tehei Menuchasach, Machain Balarachamim, Yasti Rehab, Seishak, and Afabal Lamim, Yitzror, Betzarachayim, Esnishmasach, Adonai Hu Nachamasach, Mesinuach, Hamishkavoch, Mishalayim, Venoimar, Amen. We'll form a shua here for the Abba to walk through and give an Abba. And then, as was asked earlier, if anybody can stay for Mincha, like to do Mincha before he goes back to the airport. Shiva is going to be in Chicago.
Ladies and gentlemen, you turn to the outer gate.
This concludes the service. We will be ending the Zoom at this time.